So, questions. Maybe if I could just start and ask a question of each. You're all international people coming, and see what happens in other countries. Some of you based, I think Eve and Ian are both based in Singapore now. Eve spent many years, though, in Philippines. Kathy travels around the world. Cheryl, Lirio, or Fausto. How is Philippines doing? I mean, we saw a lot of very nice presentations. The pictures look good. It's all exciting and so forth. But is Philippines doing these things, or are we a bit behind where we should be? Or what's your impressions? What do you think?
Just to kick off, I think the Philippines is catching on very quickly and leapfrogging in certain developments, absolutely, especially in the real estate sector. You're seeing it with mixed-use development. As we heard earlier, not just resorts, but also on an urban perspective. I mean, not to toot my own horn too much, but also in terms of the co-living space, the Philippines has been doing well, and we're not exactly the first dormitory company in the Philippines, and so there are developers prior to us that have been doing this, and you're seeing that really expand throughout the region and the globe. So I think it's an excellent space and an excellent place to actually further develop these innovative concepts. Also on the tech side, we have a lot of developers here in the Philippines who sometimes don't want to work for a BPO company anymore and want to start their own thing, have excellent technical skills, and want to start their own entrepreneurial venture. And you're seeing that happen more and more, and I think that's a very exciting thing to look for.
Very good. Anyone else?
Well, thank you. In my case, I will say the Philippines still a lot to do. Okay, it's very nice to see that people like the group here on a different kind of field are trying to help, as I mentioned earlier, to achieve common goals. So as I mentioned earlier, in our case, we want to help more into the countryside. Therefore, we see a lot of potential helping. And I will say not only into the hospitality industry, but in regards to real estate, retails, BPOs, and many others opportunities coming along the way in the whole Philippines. So as I show in the presentation, the Philippine economy is quite strong. And as long as the GDP keep on showing that kind of potential that is being showing for now, I believe the next 10 years, the Philippines is gonna be very strong.
Yeah, agreed. I think that the Philippines is, there's lots of opportunity here. While it may not be leading in the prop tech or in the technology side, there's a lot of investment happening here in the Philippines. We're seeing a lot of actually new unicorns that are coming outside of Philippines, which actually is tremendous. So I do think there's lots of opportunity here. I think there's a tremendous workforce. And lots of different technologies that are being built here. And the Philippines is already part of one of these smart cities councils, so that they're actually getting a lot of support from the the neighboring countries, so in ASEAN. So yeah, I agree.
Good.
We are a growing economy, and as I mentioned earlier, it's really the private sector that is fueling our growth. And not to mention the fact that we do have a large young population that is also helping prop the economy. So there is hope in spite of the dark clouds that we see sometimes.
So as mentioned, we are active in few markets, and what is actually the exciting thing about the Philippines is in the real estate tech adoption, we are in the commercial side, is that, yeah, the openness here, and I think also the willingness to collaborate here. We see it actually more than in markets like Singapore or Indonesia, and I think that's a very powerful thing, because I think it's partly driven by what I have also first-hand experienced, driven by a lot of families have built up their portfolios over the years, and so yeah, for them it's just natural that they share experience, that they collaborate together, and so I think it's actually a huge opportunity for the Philippines on the tech side to say, look, we want to be kind of the first city which is probably, let's say BGC could be the first city which is powered on a commercial real estate tech platform, and that would be extremely exciting because, again, as mentioned before, Indonesia has already seen unicorns, it has a lot of consumer tech adoption, but I think on the B2B side here is actually more an environment of collaboration compared to other markets where it's more competitive.
I think for the Philippines, we really have a bright future. Having said that, we've had the HSBC study, the world in 2050, and they have cited Philippines to be the best performer, not in Asia, but across the world. This is again brought upon by the fact that we have reached our demographic sweet spot. And as we know, all the countries who entered this part of their economic life have reached the peak of their economies as well. So regardless of the political climate, whether now or in the future, or at least until 2050, I think we'll be in good hands.
Are there compromises when you choose technology or prop tech over green or nature integrating developments?
I'm not sure what green or word that's going on that, but I think technology, it's inevitable. I mean, I think the way we're going in the future is everything's going to be, whether you like it or not. I think that there was a quote I said in the presentation, by 2050, you know, all of us are being carrying around 25, devices, interconnected devices. The way you go shop, you're no longer going to be using credit cards to actually go purchase, your food. You're going to be using your payway from your phone. I think that key cards or the keys to access your building, those are going to go away fairly soon. It's going to be facial recognition, where you walk up into the building and the building automatically it recognizes you and automatically unlocks the doors. I mean, there's even talks about how when you walk into the space, they'll recognize you and they'll have your coffee ready sitting at your desk, because it already knows you're in the building. So I think that it's inevitable. Technology is here, whether or not you like it. And we're going to be interacting more and more with the buildings around technology.
And I would say technology will enable green thing more than anything. The way we do things is not... Anyway, any more comments about that? No? Okay, we have a question over here.
Yeah, this Philippe Sorel from AcuMap. My question is financial and actually addressed to my town. You have a model, you seem to be a small developer, and you have a model of earning money from lease or rental or lease. I don't understand how you can grow very fast. Are you borrowing money from banks? And is the yield of the lease sufficient to cover high growth? How do you do it?
Magic. No, good question. So, yes, we're very asset heavy, and that was an intentional decision. Back in 2012, 2013, the Philippines had not experienced the economic growth that it has over the last 6 years consistently and structurally yet. So our decision to be asset heavy was a purpose one, because at the end of the day we would still have bricks and mortar structures to collateralize on our investment. Now, yes, we have grown very fast, and that required us to do fundraising. We put all of our money in there initially. And in 2015, we raised capital with Franklin Templeton and BPI Capital. Franklin Templeton is one of the larger global fund managers, and BPI Capital people know here, I suppose. And then in 2017, we did another fundraise with SM Investment, and that allowed us to further bolster our growth. We have not taken up any debt financing to date, so we're fully equity financed. We are looking at that right now because we have a mature portfolio of buildings and therefore also mature and consistent revenues that can allow us to take on debt without necessarily going under. Because that was one of the reasons why we stayed equity financed to date. Because the one thing that can put nails in your coffin as a developer is to over leverage yourself. And we've seen over the last year that BSP has increased interest rates, and if that would happen the moment your loans revolve, we could be in trouble. So we've always been very conservative financially, despite the fact that we've grown over 100 times over the last 6 years. I hope that answers your question. Our yields are attractive, but I won't disclose them here publicly.
Okay, we have another question right here, please.
Oh, I have a question for my town, and then also for Kathy. So for my town, you said offer it as an HR benefit. That sounds fantastic. How does it make, I mean, where are companies going to save on if offering my town as an HR benefit, you know, is given to employees? So they're saving on like transportation allowance? What is it?
Yeah, good question. So there's indirect and direct benefits. The indirect benefits are essentially...
No, I mean if I'm an HR manager right now, tell me how I'm gonna save by giving my town.
I will. I hope I can convince you.
Yeah.
Our indirect benefits are that we've seen with our 48 corporates that their retention rates shot up after staying with us. Attrition rates quartered. So especially in the BPO sector where attrition rates are 25 to 30%, I'm not sure what they are at right now. If you can quarter that and get to 7.5% or less, that has a significant impact, indirect impact and indirect benefits for your HR expenditure. You don't have to spend as much on training programs for new employees because there won't be new employees because your employees stay to live with you. So that's a major one. Another one, but that's more direct, is that as I said in my presentation, about half of employees are dissatisfied with their HR benefits. So, but at the same time, employers spend about 20% of their total comps and ben on HR benefits. So what does that mean? That means that the current portfolio of HR benefits that are being provided aren't actually the ones that employees care about. Ours is one of those that employees cares about, and it's cheaper than, for example, providing a lease car, which is a traditional HR benefit that employees receive at some point. So if you can convert current HR spending on benefits into ones that are more interesting for employees and make them stay with the company, it has both direct and indirect benefits.
Cool, thank you. Kathy.
Do I have you as a client?
No, I'm gonna tell my company.
Okay, great.
No, because right now they've done a wonderful thing, which is allow us to take Grab, right? So allow employees to take Grab. But then I figured, hey, so maybe we can save on Grab and use my town. Anyway, Kathy, I was just thinking, so Kathy said architects should be much more competent and involved in core engineering, services. So that's seismic, stability, what's that? All of that, mechanical, everything, right? How do you not get into trouble with engineers? What exactly are you telling architects? I mean, what do you mean by be more involved in? So what is it that they're not doing that you want them to do but doesn't step on the toes of engineers?
That's
Because
a very good
engineers
question.
are going to freak
Yes.
out when they hear what you said.
Of course. So what we're trying to do now is to empower designers and architects, whether you're doing architecture, master planning, or interior design, such as what Gaudi is doing a lot for workplaces, is that you oversee and lead engineering efforts. And it's not just you finish all the design plans and then turn them over to an engineer. That's the norm. What we're trying to do now, and what we are doing strongly in our company, and we're encouraging other architects to do the same, is to innovate, is to research, and to lead engineering, and integrate engineering. It's not just the technology of, say, doing building information modeling, where you take all the plans and layer them and get to see where the gaps are. It's actually being involved in the intrinsic measures being used in sewage treatment plant management. It's understanding how the electricals are working so that somehow you could integrate both solar and renewable energy with the main grid. It's also understanding exactly how the earthquake design works so that you don't contradict yourself when you plan columns with the spaces. As everybody here knows, when you do a workplace space, you don't want columns in the middle, right? So same goes with a commercial building and say the facade of a building. You don't want columns that are earthquake designed interfering with your curtain wall. So designers now should be more involved and be more specific in their requirements rather than just handing over a set of architecture plans and say to the engineer, okay, here, provide us with engineering drawings. And then afterwards, during construction, all the surprises come out. And that's where the cost goes high, the time is running out, and then you realize, I could have had more input here because our training as architects is more holistic. We have, aside from design, we also have a little bit of all the engineering, but all these engineers don't have training in architecture and design. So we are empowering the architects now to have a bigger role and learn and understand, research and innovate.
Very good. Yep, okay, please.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Gemma Gerlan from Ernst & Young. So my question is, and anybody can answer this. With so much disruption happening today and technology seems to change almost every day, a lot of automation happening, and with the adoption of flexible working conditions or flexible working schemes in most companies like working from home, working remotely, and just having your gadgets with you, you can work almost anywhere. So what do you foresee as the impact to the real estate business? And how would you prepare the business itself in the eventuality that there would be lesser demand for office spaces as as we adopt different type of working, which is probably in the next 10, 20 years, there will be lesser need for offices already.
It's a good question.
That's a very good question. I don't think that the offices will ever go away. I think that, I mean, we looked at, I think it was what IBM years ago in the 80s decided to try to do the work from home model where they spent 1 or 2 days working from home, and then IBM suddenly realized that, this doesn't work. We need actually face-to-face interactions. So I think offices will always be an anchor. That will never, ever go away. But I do think that with technology, it does enable us to work from anywhere. So yeah, you could work from a WeWork office or a Regis Spaces office, or you could work from a Starbucks in any locations. But I do think that with technology coming, it will enable us to be able to work essentially from anywhere. But I mean, to answer your question, I think that offices will continue to maintain a presence. I think that offices will continue to be large in major CBD areas.
I think just to add on that is, I think the first thing which will go will be probably parkings. So kind of, I mean, we have architects here and urban developers. So it's kind of thinking what to do with parking space, right? Once the autonomous vehicles will be on the roads and maybe a bit further away in the Philippines, but in the US already quite a hot topic. But I think it's more about reutilization of office space. Again, we work in Singapore, and yeah, they have of course the productive areas, but then they also have areas where you have a table tennis. They have free-flowing beer, right? That's part of their marketing story, but it does really keep you kind of in the place, and you can do your yoga there or your sports there. And I think it's just really looking at space and how can you actually really make your employees happy, productive. And so I don't think office spaces are going anywhere anytime soon. Yeah.
I would have to agree with them that I don't think that office spaces will be not part of our lives in the next decades. But we have to rethink what office space is. Because in the next coming years, office space will not be a space where you come to work. It is more of a hub where people come to, not to work, but to integrate themselves again to the brand, to the culture of the company, which is far more important. Because since we have now technology, and as you've said, you can work pretty much anywhere at your convenience. So what the office does now is more of a brand and culture thing for the employees. They have to have the employees grounded to what they do, but not on how they do it. So office spaces now, it's not a place where you work. You make the office space for you to make things happen for you and your company.
Yeah, okay. Okay, please,
Okay,
we'll
a
keep them coming.
question for Talux here. You mentioned that you are only as good as your data. With the Philippine real estate market not having an organized MLS or multiple listing service, where and how will PropTech get reliable data?
My thing was like data will be important to structure it. In reality, if you look at the real estate industry, the data is out there between brokers, landlords, occupiers. So in our case, it's really about structuring the information, then you can utilize it to strategize. And so I think that's really one thing. If you look, or if you refer to Talux itself, we are providing in the first place productivity tools. And so data is just along the way, the value chain and the workflows, we are capturing data and embedding data. And of course, it's true. That's why I mentioned market information for us in Talux's case will be something which will come in time. But the immediate need is to be more productive and to be more efficient. And so we don't see data as a deal breaker for any tech adoption. But yeah, data will take time, and there's a reason why more mature market, more transparent market, there's more data available in Singapore. In the US, you can just go to government agency and get more information access. And so yeah, there are more solutions in place yet, but data is not at our core.
I think a lot of this actually plays around regulation. In order to start investing in some markets, you're going to have to be more compliant on data and how you're reporting this data. International investors won't invest, or purchase a building unless it has, a clear track record, it has a due diligence in the background. So I think that, regulations, I think that countries and cities are going to start realizing that in order for them to maintain competitive against other cities, that they're going to have to start enforcing more regulations around data and compliance.
Okay.
One last question for Mr. Jelmer. How much is your acceptable range for my town's cost of construction per square meter, given that the Philippines has a higher than average cost?
Giving away all his secrets, they're trying.
Yeah, I'm not going to disclose our cost of construction. I think I'll just give a political answer. I think you can, with the strategies that were mentioned earlier, having engaged engineers, having engaged architects, looking at a total cost of ownership instead of just your upfront capital expenditure, and what does my building cost and what does my land cost, looking at it from a total cost of ownership and an integrated perspective, so how are my tenants going to use it, we've managed at least to make a lot of reductions in typical expenditures, capital expenditures that that otherwise would have been made without compromising security or safety. So it's really about taking a look, how are my tenants using it and how am I going to use the product? And then the result is that we were able to build at yields that are at par or more attractive than office spaces, and that's pretty compelling yield proposition for developers. So I don't think it's a concern. I don't think it's a constraining factor.
Okay, we're done. A hand, that was a great morning and some great presentations, very diverse and so forth.